I know I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. If you're a music lover or audiophile or whatever label you want to refer to yourself as, then I think you owe it to yourself to experience a good tube amp if you haven't already. There's going to be the unique look, and then of course there's going to be the sound. Now, here at Zero Fidelity, I've reviewed roughly a handful of tube amps this year, but the one thing they've all had in common is that they're all low power. So today, I'm going to talk about something that's relatively affordable that also has the kind of power that you can use with most common loudspeakers. So having said that, let's roll the intro and take a closer look at this amp. Alright, so here it is, the Musishare X7 integrated amplifier. As you can tell by the name, this amplifier comes from China, yet is currently available on Amazon to the tune of $1,150. So what do you get for that kind of money? The answer is quite a bit. The X7 weighs 50 pounds, features aluminum front panels and knobs, with the rest of the chassis being made of sheet metal that takes on this interesting blue flake color. Overall, I think the build quality is very impressive, especially when compared to the typical hi-fi amp at this price. I mean, no, it's not quite up to Luxman standards, but it's not far behind either, and it costs a lot less money. So now let's take a closer look at what you get. Okay, so to kick things off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly summarize what you get on the front of the X7, and then I'm going to lift the cage so we can take a closer look at the tube complement. So, getting right to it, going from left to right, on the very left we have our power button. Next to that, we're going to have a switch that allows you to toggle between ultra-linear and triode operation. Now, in case you don't know what that means, think of it like this. If you want access to the X7's full power output capability, which in this case is going to be 45 watts per channel, then you're going to want to leave it in ultra-linear mode. This is going to give you the most powerful, cleanest, and most dynamic sound. However, if you're looking for more of that classic tube presentation that's rolled off and warm sounding, just switch it to triode mode. Now, this is going to come at the expense of power output. It's going to be lowered to 25 watts per channel, but at least you have options. And the cool thing is you can switch between these modes not only while the amplifier is on, but also while music is playing. Next to that, we are going to have a switch that allows you to use the X7 as just an amplifier. So if you have a preamp that you really want to use, connect that preamp to the X7, switch pre-in, and away you go. Next to that, we're going to have a headphone jack, and I'll be completely honest with you guys, I didn't use it. I don't even know how much power goes to this jack, and it's something that I need to work on in future reviews because, hey, headphones matter too, right? Anyways, next to that, we are going to have our VU meters for the left and right channels. We're going to have our volume control, which feels very nice to the touch, almost Luxman-esque. And then we're going to have our selector switch, which also feels very nice. Anyways, now let's take a look at those tubes. So here's the tube complement that comes with the X7. On the back row, we have 4 KT88 power tubes. Now these are a popular choice not only due to their high power output capability, but also due to their sound. In fact, the KT88 was designed with audio applications in mind. Up front, we are going to have a tube rectifier. And the easiest way to explain this function is to say that it takes AC current from the transformer and then converts it over to DC current for the tubes. Next to our rectifier, we are going to have 3 signal tubes. We're going to have 2 low gain 12AU7 signal tubes to the side, and then in the center, we're going to have a high gain 12AX7. Now, it's important to note that this is not an auto bias amplifier, which means when it comes time to replace the power tubes, you're going to have to bias each tube yourself. But this is very easy to do. Don't let that intimidate you. And to help things along, Musishare has the selector switch that indicates the letter and number of each tube. Otherwise, I think it's cool to see an integrated amp that uses very common tubes. This means that replacing them is going to be easy, and serviceability in the long haul should be fairly simple and painless. Anyways, now let's take a look at the back of the integrated. Alright, so here's the back of the X7, and as you can tell, there's not a whole lot to go over. So going from left to right, we are going to have an input for a turntable. Interestingly enough, this is supposed to have a built-in phono preamp, only I know nothing about it. I don't know if it's moving magnet, moving coil, if it's both. Once I get that information, I'll share it with you guys down in the description box below. Moving on, we have 3 analog inputs. We have our preamp input if you want to use this as just an amplifier. A quick comment though. These RCAs are covered with this thick plastic cover, and it is on really tight. In fact, I had to use a set of pliers in order to get it off, and I think that's a little too much. I mean, I appreciate the extra touch here, but it's just a little too tight of a seal. Moving on, we are going to have our set of high quality binding posts for our speakers, the typical 8 and 4 ohm tap options. Over here, we are going to have our IEC inlet for the power cord, and that is going to be it. So now let's take a quick look on the inside. Okay, so this is something that I didn't plan on filming, but I nonetheless want to share my enthusiasm with you guys. So when I turned this amplifier over, I was relieved to find that it uses Phillips head screws to secure the plate to the amplifier. And this is great because it means all I have to do is take a normal screwdriver to access the inside components. And the reason why this is so special to me is because, well, this is something you probably don't know about Zero Fidelity. All the reactions that I've had to the inside of a component is genuine and done in the moment. I don't take a peek beforehand just to learn what something's all about. Now, this can be problematic because at times I'll say, okay, well, let's take a look on the inside of the product, only to flip it over and to find that I don't have the appropriate tools to access the inside of the component, meaning I have to order them or I need to go to the hardware store. So it's nice to flip something over only to find that I can just use a normal Phillips head screwdriver. So anyways, just wanted to share that with you. Also, it's kind of cool because it means servicing the unit should be fairly easy, especially in North America. So now, for real, let's take a look on the inside to see what you get. All right, so here we go. And as you guys can probably tell, the majority of the X7 is done up via point-to-point wiring. Looks like the solder joints are fairly decent. We have our metal plate for the power tubes. Look at that. We have their own branded capacitors. That's pretty cute. We also have some Nichicons. That's actually pretty surprising. We have some Nichicons up here as well. That's actually very impressive for something at this price. We have our AUX potentiometer. And overall, it just looks like a very solidly well-made amplifier for this kind of money. So now it's time to talk about how it sounds. So the performance of the X7 is interesting because what you're getting is a product that has two different characters in one chassis. And all you have to do to access those different presentations is to flip a switch. Here's what I mean. Remember in the beginning of the video when I commented on the difference between ultralinear and triode operation? Well, what you have toggled is going to have a huge impact over what you hear. For example, when you listen to the X7 in ultralinear mode, which is going to give you access to its full output capabilities, you're going to get a sound that's lively, and it's all about projecting a good sense of power, scale, and effortless detail. In a lot of respects, it's like it's trying to recreate the sensation of a live musical event. So if you're into rock and roll, full-scale orchestral music, or maybe you have a set of floor-standing speakers and you want them to sound as full and as realistic as possible, then you're going to love this amplifier in ultralinear mode. In fact, let's go into detail here, starting with the treble. The treble is going to be lively. It's not going to be this typical rolled-off sounding tube amplifier. Now, if you listen to bright speakers and or bright recordings, it may be too much of a good thing, but I think one thing most people are going to like is that effortless sense of detail, by which I mean the ability to take subtle information within a recording and to give it its own sense of space. That way it's easier to hear that detail. I think it's maybe the best I've ever heard for $1,000 in this regard, or just north of $1,000. It's very, very good. Moving on to the mid-range. The mid-range is a lot like the treble. It projects in a forward way, effortlessly detailed, yet it's still going to have that body and depth to the sound that draws people to tube amplifiers to begin with. It does take on this slightly hard tonal trait within the mid-range, which I think may be attributed to the tubes. Anyways, moving on, we're going to have the bass. The bass is going to be very strong, even on average efficiency loudspeakers. We have the dynamic output. When you connect this to something like, say, a Tecton or a Klipsch or something that's highly power sensitive, the dynamic output is absolutely incredible for something that's rated at 45 watts. Even on average speakers is pretty good, but it definitely comes into its own on the aforementioned products. Next, let's talk about imaging. So this is something I don't really comment on when it comes to electronics because imaging is more due to the traits of the loudspeakers. But I noticed that just about every speaker that I connected to the X7 so far, it's like it's able to allow them to maximize their ability to lay down a soundstage. So if you're really into that, you're really going to like it. But let's face it, not everybody is going to want this bold, lively sound. But the cool news is, let's just say you're in the mood for more of a relaxing listening session. All you have to do is switch it to triode mode and suddenly it changes. The top end is going to be a lot smoother, a lot more rolled off. The mid-range is no longer going to be as forward and as in your face. Instead, it's going to take on this warmer, more natural tone. No, the imaging isn't going to be quite as wide. The dynamic output, the bass isn't going to be quite as strong. It's just going to give you a more pleasant listening experience. And myself, I think this is really cool. Because I'm not sure about you guys, but I noticed that my moods tend to oscillate. There are times when I really love that big, realistic, and bold sense of scale, but there are also times where I just want to come home after a tough day. I just want to listen and relax. And it's cool to have an amplifier that allows you to do that with just the flip of the switch. So pretty cool stuff, but it's not going to be perfect, so let's go over those imperfections now. Okay, so while there's a lot going for the X7, it's not all roses and sunshine, and there's some issues that we need to go over, starting with the first and most obvious. MusiShare is a Chinese company, and that in and of itself is not a problem, but it's not a globally distributed brand. And that brings up the question of after-sales support. What is that going to look like? Because even though the products come with a 1-year warranty, what happens when that warranty is done and you experience an issue? Don't get me wrong, this seems like a very well-made integrated amplifier. It seems like it would be easy to service from somebody who knows what they're doing, but it's something for you to bear in mind. Next, let's talk about the fact that even though this product has been in production for years now, you still can't find basic information on some of its features, like the phono stage. When I look at the manual, when I look at the website, when I look at the importer website, all it says is phono stage. It doesn't tell me what kind it actually is, which is crazy considering that this is a product that's targeted towards audiophiles, and this is fairly important information. So it just seems very sloppy. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's just how it strikes me. And then lastly, let's talk about equipment matching. So this isn't necessarily a problem so much as it is something for you to know about. You would think, with what I said about the X7, that it would match pretty much any speaker up to reasonable volume levels. Only that's not the case. In fact, when I got this unit in, I connected it to my Bucard Audio S400s and even the S300s, and quite frankly, it wasn't really a good match. The sound was a little dull, and it just had no real life or energy. But when I connected it to the Tektons and the Klipsch and even the Harb FP3s, it was perfectly okay. So then I connected it to the Polk Audio L100s, and I ran into the same thing as I did with the Bucard. So the one resounding theme here that I'm noticing is that if the speaker uses thick drivers, then it seems like it's just not happy with that. So it's just something to bear in mind. This is definitely going to be one of those scenarios to where you just need to take a chance, try to amplifier out in your system, and to see if it works for you. This may be difficult for some people in different markets outside of North America, but for those of us in North America, at least you can buy this off Amazon, and that's going to give you 30 days to make a determination as to whether or not it's for you. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the caveats. Now, let's wrap up this review. So let me put it this way. If you have around $1,000 to spend and you're looking for a purist audiophile solution, you don't care if the product has built-in streaming capabilities or a built-in DAC. You just want something that has the best build quality and the best sound that you can find for the money. I think a case can be made for the X7 because there's so much going for it. I mean, first and foremost, there's going to be the aesthetic. This is a product that you really have to see in person in order to appreciate because it just looks stunning. And the build quality is also very good. As I mentioned earlier, it's not quite up to Luxman standards, but it's not that far behind for a lot less money. And then there's going to be the sound. The sound isn't going to be for everybody, nothing is, but I like the fact that you can toggle between two distinctly different types of presentations, going from that lively, big, bold sound to something that's more subdued, that's warmer, that's more rolled off. It's nice to have that option that's available at the flip of a switch. And I have a feeling that the performance can be taken to the next level using better tubes than what comes stock on this unit. So I think ultimately the X7 is a very, very easy recommendation, especially to people in North America who can buy this off of Amazon. I think it's definitely worth a try if you're in a market for something in this range. So having said that, that's it for my take on the X7. I'm going to wrap up this review with a little conclusion at the end for a bonus, but otherwise, guys, as always, I appreciate you checking in, and until next time, peace. Comparisons. I know you guys like them, which is why I try to include them in most of my reviews. Now, what I'm going to do for this bonus section is I'm going to compare the MusiShare to the Marantz PM8006 solid state integrated amplifier, and then I'm going to comment on how I think it stacks up to the Luxman tube amp that I reviewed earlier in the year. So, about the Marantz. This is interesting because both products are geared towards audiophiles and they retail for roughly the same price. The MusiShare retailing for $1,150, whereas the Marantz retails for $1,200. So how do they stack up? Well, it goes like this. I think in pure sound quality terms, the MusiShare has it pretty much hands down. If you like that big, lively sound, you like big imaging, lots of detail, strong bass, you're going to prefer the MusiShare, especially if you want that depth and body to the sound that tubes are known for. It sounds more dimensional, like there's just more of a actual live presentation taking place over the Marantz. And if you like a smoother sound, conversely, the MusiShare is going to be better there. Switch it into triode mode, and now the top end is going to be smoother than the Marantz, and the mid-range is also going to sound more natural. Tonally speaking, the Marantz is voiced like it's in between both the ultralinear and triode mode on the MusiShare. It's actually very well done. It's just, it's going to sound a little flatter than our tube amplifier. But the Marantz also has some advantages. It's not only going to be more powerful, but it also sounds better across a wider variety of speakers. For example, the Bucarts that don't exactly sound great on the MusiShare sound fantastic on the Marantz. And I feel like the Marantz has never sounded outright bad with anything that I've ever paired to it, whereas I could see the MusiShare just flat out not working with certain types of loudspeakers. So there's something to be said for versatility, and then there's going to be accessibility. Marantz is a globally distributed company. We know it's going to be reliable. We know it's easy to buy. Aftermarket support is going to be fantastic for it, or I should say after sales support. And then there's going to be the fact that the Marantz is a drop and plop solution. The reliability should be high. There's nothing to maintain. Whereas with tube amplifiers, you're going to eventually have to replace those power tubes, and that's going to be an ongoing investment that you will need to make. So it's just something that you need to bear in mind. But in terms of sound quality, yeah, I think the MusiShare has it pretty easily in this one. So now let's talk about how it competes against the Luxman. So the Luxman has better build quality, and I think the sound is overall better. Now I wish I could show it off for you guys, but sadly I had to return to Luxman. I know, it does make me really sad. But anyways, I think in terms of sound, you don't really need to toggle switch between ultralinear or triode just because the sound is better in that overall sense. It has more of a natural timbre to it, but at the same time, it's going to be more balanced, more insightful. It'll show you what's happening with the recording without a lot of coloration, at least in comparison to the MusiShare. So I think overall the Luxman is the better piece, but it's not going to be nearly as versatile as the MusiShare. So, you know, you pick your poison, so to speak. And of course, the Luxman retails for $3,000 freaking dollars. There's also that, or close to $3,000. So, anyways, guys, that's going to be my take on how the MusiShare stacks up to those components. Hopefully, you took something away from this. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.